Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France-WENTE debate. Just a few hours ago, we saw Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff pack her bags and voice defiantly that she was calling on Brazilians, as she put it, to mobilize, saying it was a coup against her. She was impeached by a very wide margin in the Senate in proceedings that lasted till dawn, 55-22 the margin. Now her trial will begin in the Senate to see whether she is permanently thrown out of office. It's the end of an era after 13 years of the Workers' Party holding the presidential palace in that emerging giant. With us to talk about it here in the studio, sociologist Glauber Sarrazino. We're also in the company of Fred Lira, member of the March 18 Democratic Movement, who supports Dilma Rousseff. We're going to try to reestablish the connection with Brasilia. We're saying before the break, and I'll put it to you first, the end of an era after 13 years.
Yeah, I think it's important to begin with what she said, because, for example, one of the senators that was the brain of the state coup, José Serra, is supposed to be maybe the international relations minister.
He's French news agency reporting he'll be the next foreign minister.
Yeah, exactly. So he's accused formally of 17 process in the justice, just in the elector, in the justice, another 3 process for improbability administrative. So, I mean, he's formally accused for 20, at least, accusation. And Dilma, for example, is 0 accusation. And he was candidate in the past election against Lula.
All right, so what's clear here is that it won't be a free ride for Dilma Rousseff's successor, 75-year-old Michel Temer, a seasoned deal-maker, once an ally of the Workers' Party, now a foe. His center-left Brazilian Democratic Movement Party has its own issues with corruption, as we've been saying. Haxi Mars-Belkin has more.
Michel Temer, an established kingmaker but never king, Temer has helped his party, the PMDB, form coalitions with every president in the last 2 decades. But a few months ago, the gloves came off. Days after a PMDB colleague opened impeachment proceedings against Rousseff, an angry letter from Temer to the president made its way to the press. And in March, the PMDB officially quit the coalition, allowing the party to put forward a pro-business, deficit-tackling manifesto. A pointed departure from Rousseff's policy of big government spending. Temer's supporters are excited.
The country will regain its standing, because right now we are solving the political crisis, and soon we will start solving the economic crisis.
Not everyone's so sure.
60% of voters are against Temer. He'll take power, but he'll be marked by the stamp of illegitimacy. And when the public realizes this, senators will change their mind about how to vote on the impeachment, this attempt at a coup d'etat.
In a move to balance the budget, Temer's policies include introducing a minimum retirement age, making labour laws more flexible and cutting state spending on health and education, all of which are likely to be deeply unpopular in the midst of a social and economic crisis. And that's not all. Temer has been implicated in the corruption scandal that's engulfing Brazil's political and business elite. A Supreme Court judge has instructed the lower house of Congress to decide if impeachment proceedings against Temer would be appropriate. He stands accused of manipulating government funds.
All right, an opinion divided on the hashtag F24debate. Kunde saying, seems the powerful Brazilian aristocrats want to get rid of the populist pro-people Workers' Party. So someone else who supports Dilma Rousseff. Of course, her popularity numbers were very, very low in the teens before this impeachment process began. And her successor has come in saying that he's going to rein in public spending at this time when we have this big inflation. He's going to limit, for instance, the number of cabinets in his new government. He's just named, or he's set to name, the former central bank chief, Enrique Meirelles, a champion of a more orthodox monetary policy, as the finance minister. Is there a need there to the money's not in the coffers to tighten a bit keep a closer eye on how the government spends its money?
Well, I think it's important to say that the popularity of Dilma was bad exactly because she tried to and stated austerity politics. The first thing that she do was touch the unemployment and retirement politics, for instance, in 2015. And so the politics bring by the Workers' Party at this moment in 2015 and 2016 was a politic of austerity and a real neoliberal politics. And this corrupt the support in the population, especially the poor ones. So if Temer go in this route, I don't think he gonna bring everybody with him, because the problem now in Brazil is that the inflation is too big, but the unemployment is grow exponential. We don't have investments in industry. We count only with the exportation of commodities, and now China don't buy commodities anymore like she bought before. So I don't think neoliberal politics will arrange this kind of situation. The situation could be arranged if we invested in industrialization and a creation of a...
But one of the big criticisms put forth is that when you had those great years of growth under her predecessor, Lula da Silva, and you had the economy booming, commodity prices hitting highs, that the needed reforms just weren't done to prepare for the day when the price of oil, when China's growth would slow, when the need for those commodities would slow.
Oh, because they couldn't do that. Why? Because the support in the political
majority
field,
in both houses at the time.
Yeah, but the majority of people who relies in this kind of economic turn. Though we talk about agribusiness in parliament, we talk about agro-export in parliament, mineration in parliament. So if we change this kind of economic politics, the coalition scatter. We saw a little bit of that in 2004 and 2015, 2014 and 2015. She tried to do another kind of politics, and the coalition just go sour.
Another reaction on the hashtag F24 debate. Either way, we all know Rousseff is politically dead, no matter what kind of suspension she gets. Fred Lira, your reaction to that? Is she politically dead?
I don't think so. I think she tried to resist, but I think that as Glauber was saying, the biggest problem wasn't only Dilma Rousseff, but the way that works because when she tries to do some more, I think, the reforms or a new economic platform, new investment, try to bring the entrepreneur to invest in the country, they finish the alliance with the country, because they have another kind of interest, because the productive apparatus in Brazil, like the MEDEF, as we are in
the
France,
Business Leaders Association.
They are all together with the financial now.
So you're saying that there was a cabal against her, vested interest? I'm sorry, it's difficult.
Yeah, we can say.
But it's difficult to believe in conspiracy theories. Nobody's rooting for Brazil's economy to go south.
It's not a kind of it's not a kind of conspiracy theory. It's just a different way to try to bring the country. For example, the politics that Dilma was elected for was a development politics. In the first day of her mandate last year, she tried to do the politics of her adversary. But the difference is...
But she had no choice at that particular point in time. When state coffers are empty, you have to tighten a bit your state spending.
No. This is too much Margaret Thatcher discourse. I mean, she has a plan that was boycotted, and also from the first day by her coalition. So, I mean, and the problem is because these that are doing this state coup, they want a neoliberalism politics and economic politics more faster than the PT, than the government was doing, was too slow for them. So, I mean, that's the plan of Michel Temer in his 180 days of government. He's allowed now because he are going to try to do in this very short time what was supposed to do in 4 years. So, I mean, it's very, the state coup is a kind of very devastator neoliberalism to try to end up or finish all the state apparatus in Brazil, the state production, all the education, the university are to be privatized, the health system that, I mean, you can imagine the health system that most part of the
Hang on, you're talking, all right, so there's an agenda, you're saying this sort of secret agenda that had been around for a long time to do a vast privatizations, to do sweeping Margaret Thatcher-like neoliberal reforms. But we're talking about a vice president who, until not so long ago, was allied with the Workers' Party that you support.
Yeah, I'm not supporting the Workers' Party. We are supporting the democracy, the rules of the game. Because what is changing is the rule of the games. We were against the neoliberalism, politics, economic politics of the Work Party. We are against that. But what is coming on is very much worse, much worse than what we have now. And also, they are changing the rules of the game, and I think it's no more a democracy. It's because, as he pointed out, Glauber pointed out, the same accusations that they are made with Dilma are the same of the vice president. They are going to be this kind of president now.
All right, let me bring in on this.
I mean, it's not really a democracy because it's not. They have no justice in the process.
So not really a democracy.
To be
Let
clear.
me bring in Alfredo Valadao of the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, who joins us. Thank you for being with us here again on the France 24 debate. You've just heard Fred Lira describe this as a coup. The impeachment of Dilma Rousseff before the Senate. Would you say that at the end of the day, Brazil's political institutions are going to come out of this stronger or weaker?
I think I don't know if they're going to come out stronger or weaker. What I see is that the first thing that happened in Brazil is that we have a very incredible lesson on constitutional rights. Everybody in Brazil in the last 4 months, have discussed the separation of powers, the role of the parliament, the role of the executive, the responsibility crimes, etc. And I think this is very positive for Brazil. The second thing is that the impeachment process was done in totally conformity with the Constitution. And this is very good. I mean, I'm from a generation that saw military coups and even non-military coups in Latin America, and they were all against the Constitution. Now this Constitution was absolutely respected, with the government being capable and having the right to make recourse to appeals to the justice system, etc., etc. So I think in the end, this is positive. Then the problem now is that the whole political class is more or less corrupt. So the problem now is, how do we manage to keep Brazil going without Brazil just breaking up completely? I think the worst thing that happened in Brazil is not neoliberalism. What broke Brazil is the administration of the PT and Dilma Rousseff particularly, that made Brazil come to the worst economic crisis of its history. So now we have to get out of it. And obviously it's going to be very difficult. And I understand that the people from the government and people from Dilma Rousseff are making scary tactics about everything is finished, there's no democracy, the economy will be totally liberalized. I don't agree with all that. Well, the maximum that this new government can do is try to stabilize a little bit the situation in order that Brazil will not crash completely. And then we will see what happens in the next few months. But I don't think that we should have all these scary tactics about Brazil.
Alfredo, we look at the short term and the long term. The long term of Brazil over the past 13 years is what? 16 million benefiting from that Lights for All program to electrify the countryside. 35 million lifted out of poverty over the past decade. When you look at the story over the long term and the support base for the Workers' Party, is it a parallel situation to what is unfolding in neighboring Venezuela?
No, it's not exactly the same thing. In Venezuela, they did much worse than that. In Venezuela, they just killed the country in a certain sense. There's no more industry. There's no more commerce. There's nothing there. There's not even democracy, because we have a very hard situation in Venezuela with a country completely on with extreme criminality. The crisis there is much worse than in Brazil. In Brazil, yes, we had very good indicators in the last 10 years. The problem is that they were not sustainable, because these indicators, the fact of putting people out of poverty came from the good prices of our raw materials that we export to China, and to a huge splurge of public credit. So this was good for a lot of people, but it was not sustainable. And now you have a lot of people who went out of poverty and that are coming back to poverty because of all these errors, and that are mad at Lula and at Dilma. So the problem now is, how can we put together a model, an economic model in Brazil that is sustainable, that keeps going against inequality, but also puts Brazil with very competitive industries, opening its markets, making growth come back, and sustainable growth. That's the problem.
How do you fight poverty when you don't have the money to do it?
Well, we have the money to do it. For instance, if we do a tax reform for the higher revenue in Brazil, if we stop the fiscalization of agribusiness and mineration, for instance, because they pay almost anything in taxes, it's symbolical. We have the money. You have the money. We need to choose to pick the money to give me the money.
I do agree with that, but this was the policy of Lula. It was Lula that to make a government gave all this money to.
Yeah, but what you are suggesting to do is the opposite of what Glauber is suggesting.
Yes,
but you are suggesting
the opposite. I think we should stop giving money to business that are not competitive, as we do, giving money to bankers, as Lula did, and opening to competition. Brazil was never a place where you can have competition in industry, in banking and finance.
But the problem now...
Brazil was never a capitalist party.
This place don't exist.
The problem now is that we had a scenario of completely disindustrialization. So open the market for competition. It means open the market for transnational industry, install in Brazil,
everything.
Privatize everything we can. So this is not a good thing.
They were not going to privatize. They were not going to privatize because there are too much lobbies. There are too much lobbies that don't want.
Which lobby?
She already started. She already started with the how do you say?
And I think there's a lot of things that
Dilma already started the privatization with another name, but she started.
But what you're suggesting to do was what Fernando Henrique Cardoso did, and what we have, the Brazil broken 3 times in the 8 time of FHC government. So I think what you're suggesting to do is not really a nice economic politics. We have to invert the tendency.
Alfredo Valadao.
Yes. No, what I'm saying is that in the government of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, he did some very good things, which was to stop inflation, which was a tax against the poor. When they stopped inflation, Brazil was much better during the FHC, and Lula inherited a very good thing. And when he started his first mandate, he even knew perfectly well, he kept the basis of the Fernando Henrique Cardoso's policy. But then he had to make. Lula was never, and Dilma, and the PT was never.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time, so I just want to put one question to Glauber Sarrazino, because we heard from both Alfredo Valadao and Fred Lira about this, which is the solidity now going forward of Brazil's institutions. Fred Lira saying democracy as we know it in Brazil is over. We heard Alfredo Valadao saying it's too early to say, of course, how these institutions are going to fare over the next 18 months. What's your verdict on this?
I think we're gonna live a very unstable moment, because we cannot autonomize politics. Politics is not only in the parliament, it's not only in the executive. Politics is also in the streets, and people are in the streets right now, right wings, left wings, and we don't know what we can where we can arrive with that, because Brazil is a very violent society. Every kind of social problem is resolved by violence. Already you have, well, I don't know, 2 or 3 deaths already. It's very little for a Brazilian kind of possibility to resolve things. And I think if Dilma stays to fight the PT, the Workers' Party, and the activists, left activists, against the right activists in the society, completely unstable, I don't know where we can go. We can live really the very bad moments in the next 18 months.
We'll continue, of course, to follow. Glauber Sarrazino, I want to thank you. I want to thank Fred Lira.
Thanks.
I also want to thank Alfredo Valadao for being with us. Stay with us now, though. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to James Creedon. And as you heard, Brazil more polarized than it's been in a long time after this impeachment.
That's right, François. So just to look at how media have been covering the story. First off, French media, Dilma Rousseff is calling on Brazilians to get mobilized against the coup d'etat. We see coup d'etat in pretty much every headline referring to this story. The Huffington Post went so far as to call it Brazil coup complete, which kind of essentially is rubber stamping the theory, which, because it is, I suppose, a theory at some level, that this is a coup. They also have an opinion piece by Glenn Greenwald, who has been consistently saying, Rio-based journalist, of course, behind several big stories in the last few years. He has been calling it a judicial coup organised by a thoroughly corrupt ruling class that would depose the Workers' Party and install a new right-wing government into power. So there you go. I mean, that's the narrative that is coming back again and again. For Vice News, they're talking about how Dilma could now face trial after the Senate voted to impeach her. But they're also talking about how deeply unpopular Mr. Temer is at just 12%, and all of the challenges that he faces between Zika virus, the organising of the Olympics, etc. But they also point out that despite his massive unpopularity, fireworks could be heard around Brasilia, that there was quite a degree of elation as well by the removal of Dilma Rousseff, who is not by any means popular. This tweet, I suppose, giving a sense of some, happiness at her removal. The minority trying to have their say. Good riddance to Dilma, of that in reference to some protests at her impeachment.
And you could say that both are right, since both are deeply unpopular.
That's right. Indeed, the political establishment generally seems to be increasingly unpopular. Also, criticism for the media in this regard, in particular the Globo group. This article in Nation referring to the fact that they very much backed the removal of Dilma Rousseff. The Nation refers to it as the right-wing idea machine. and says that mass demonstrations were egged on by this Fox News on steroids media giant. That's a pretty big criticism, I think you could say. Yes, a lot of anger as well with Globo by those who are against Dilma's removal. This is a tweet showing in an intense scene as Dilma exits the palace, shouts of Globo coup monger. And apparently Globo television in this case cut the audio once that chant became distinguishable from what was being heard in the crowd. So there you go. Just to finish with a discourse that is increasingly being touted in particular in the Washington media in the US. Has the left run its course in Latin America, of course, looking to political events in other countries as well. From the point of view of the nation, that is simply
because we've seen
not true.
A changing of the guard in Argentina. We've seen in other places, and there is this sense of a pendulum swing, not just in Brazil.
That's right. In any case, the nation argues that theory is bogus, and that the left generally has led the region's second independence, as they call it, over the last number of decades, and that this is maybe a pendulum swing, but not definitive.
All right, that's the view of Mark Weisbrot there. Many thanks for that, James Creedon. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.